So here's the thing. The success of your business, your empire, your career, whatever it is, it's not going to fix your relationship. So today we're here to talk about what actually will.
Hmm.
For want of a better word, actually, because we're not really into fixing, are we?
No, not really. But what happens for a lot of people is that they set out on the journey of creating a business, and it can take a lot out of us, and it can be a busy old track. But a lot of people can put their relationship on hold while they're getting on with creating a business because they feel that's what they need to do. No distractions. I've got to stay focused and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a single-minded approach. It's based on the assumption that they can't have both, which is actually not true. One supports the other, and the other way around. When we get the mix right, when we understand what we're doing,
Yeah.
and we're clear. But the thing about it is that when we do stay focused on the business, likely we will create success. We'll create a level of viability and success with the business. And then a lot of people feel like, well, that's when I can then, bring my focus and my attention to the relationship. And we can have the relationship, we can have the life that we'd love to share together. And the thing is that the success has been built exclusive of the relationship. So it's been left off to the side. Therefore, now the success that's been built, it didn't include the relationship along the
Yeah.
way.
Even if the two people are working in the same business, by the way.
That's right.
Believe it or not.
So it's very difficult, to almost to impossible, without some real understanding, and to bring the two together then in hindsight.
Absolutely. So we can arrive at this place that we call success. We go, oh, we made it, whatever that is. And if you watch the last video, most people don't know what that is. And it's an ever shifting thing, but you can go back and watch that one. But if we do get to a point where we go, oh, phew, we made it, awesome. But in terms of the relationship, whatever was given up or sacrificed, the resentment's still going to be there. Or where whatever wins weren't acknowledged, that there's going to be resentment there as well. There's going to be a sense of I'm not appreciated. So the thing is, the relationship has been tainted to a degree, and it remains tainted. There's a lack of clarity on some of it, and it's just a hope that we're going to be able to put it back together again, and make it better. And now we can step into our roles of the prince and the princess rolling off into the sunset, but that's not going to be the thing that happens straight away, because there's some things that need to be tidied up. Anything that hasn't been tidied up needs to be tidied up physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. That's all got to be handled, even though it's been swept under the rug for that long until the business succeeded. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way to go is to bring the two along together, nurture the relationship, build the business, and involve both, so that the relationship can be growing and expanding along with the business, and you have this shared experience all the way along. Then you don't have this disconnect that sort of creeps its way in there, and you find yourself wondering, how did we actually get here? And now we have these issues. And for a lot of people, they separate, along the way, essentially, and go their own separate ways because they feel like they have no other options. And it's because people didn't anticipate that putting the relationship on the back burner while they get on with business was an issue. That they just made the assumption that that's okay. I can do that, and it's not even like it's a conscious decision.
No.
It's just that the business asks so much of us in the beginning, particularly, that we get drawn into that, and we need to work hard and focus and all that sort of thing, but not at the expense of the relationship. So that this is where understanding helps us to be able to.
Absolutely. There's a lot of unspoken adoption of roles and rules, isn't there? Like, say, for example, the more feminine partner in the relationship may end up juggling kids as well as maybe, and this is going to sound very stereotypical, but maybe some of the admin in the background where they can be with the kids and that sort of thing. or there is more of the masculine role where potentially, and again, I'm being very stereotypical here, but the masculine might be more front of sales or something like that, where there's that sense of, no, I'm out there, I'm doing the hunting for the business, if you like. Now, obviously, that's not strictly the case, but what can happen is we take on those roles without discussing it or without having the vision for it. And so it creates more and more separation and more of a sense of, oh, that's just how it is. And each person taking on that role then thinks, well, my piece of the puzzle is contributing, their piece of the puzzle hopefully is contributing, I'm assuming so, and therefore we might get there in the end. But it's very disconnected. It's very, again, abstract and not clear at all. And it's very hard to get enthusiastic about that. As I remember being a young mum with kids, and there was a business to be run, and there were kids to be taken care of. And it was amazing. I had a male mentor once who was educating a group of a whole group of professionals in the room. There's probably 600 of them in there. I would say 3/4 of them were men in the practitioner field. And he was standing there and saying, his wife had recently had babies. I think they had a couple of young kids and a baby at the time. And he said, when it's the night before I go into work, I sleep in a different room and the wife takes care of the babies because she's got the breastfeeding to do and all this sort of stuff. And my head nearly blew off in an explosion, because I'm like, well, who the heck is going to breastfeed my baby that I've got sitting there, or tend to the sick kid or whatever? There's no one there taking over that role for me. So these unspoken agreements, and they just can't be unspoken. They need to be communicated. They need to be spoken in a way that it's like, well, of course, I'm going to breastfeed the baby. I'm not going to hand that over to anybody else. That just goes with it. But at the same time, what's the vision of what we're creating? And it's not even a horse trading game of you do this, I do that, sort of let's divvy it all up. But there will be some natural divvying taking place anyway, unconsciously. So why don't we just consciously create in as closest alignment as we can to what we would love? Because I did love looking after my babies and I did love growing the business. So why can I not have both? And have the partner understand exactly what needs to happen in order for my vision to transpire and for his vision to transpire. Like, that's super important, I think.
Yeah, it is. And I think that it's where it gets tricky is that we don't understand certain things, certain facets to a relationship and certain dynamics that can be involved in a relationship. There's no kind of formal training around relationship dynamics at school.
No.
And so we pop out into the world and we just do our best, and then we kind of have mixed and varied results. But there is actually more structure available to us that can really serve and support us in fostering beautiful relationships where we can stay deeply connected as we get on with creating amazing businesses. And the reality is that if your relationship's shot to pieces, your business is not going to do as well as it could otherwise do anyway.
No. Or you'll lose at least half of it, if not all of it.
Well, there's that side of it.
It's all those things. Relationship breakdowns are very expensive, as it turns out, right?
Yeah, so it's all for a bit of understanding around certain structures that we can have access to and put in place in order to see our relationships thrive. And they're simple, but they're just conscious. It's really the difference between us being clear about what we love and going about it in a conscious way, versus just running off the seat of our pants and hoping for the best. And when we do that, our outcomes more often than not are crappy.
Yeah.
To put it simply.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then we look at it and go, well, I've got no time. I'm too busy. I'm so tired. There's too many things to do. And we put all that, we surrogate the real problem onto all those things rather than actually owning it and going, well, actually, we're not taking the time to build that whole life together. including how this business is going to move forward, or how, and that should be just as important, that inclusion, as the family things. What are we doing as a family? What are we doing socially? What are we doing knowing what each other loves, like having a good talk about, hey, how's your photography going, or how's my art going, or whatever it happens to be. These things are really the core of what brings a true functional relationship into its essence, into its fullest vibration, because we're sharing everything about life. And that doesn't mean you have to sit there and talk for 7 hours at the end of every night about your day and all that sort of thing. But what it does do is that you've got a finger on the pulse in terms of, what's going on for the other person, right? You just have an understanding, and what lights them up, what lights you up, and how the two of you in that expression are able to create something even better. Because we know quantum is not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 equals, it could be infinity, really. It just, they work so well together. But we've just got this, and I know I was, when I was talking about the baby story and the breastfeeding thing, I was so into the scorekeeping game. Yeah, but I've been doing this. Why can't you at least do the bloody washing, or put the dishes away to the dishwasher and things like that? I was very much into the horse trading of codependency, but it didn't help. It wasn't helpful, and it certainly wasn't honoring of either of the two parties in that relationship. Subsequently, it did dissolve, obviously, and that's a story for another day. But now that I know better, I do better, hopefully. Okay, he's got to carry the scorecard on that, or the report card on that.
Well, the thing is, with our relationship, our businesses thrived since liftoff, sort of thing, and continues to, as does our relationship, because it never really got left behind in the wake of the creation of the business. There were times where in creating the business and in building it, we've been extremely busy, and we would notice that there was a kind of a drift where we were both flat out doing our thing, but then we could identify it, because we understood what we were looking at. We could identify what was going on, what was playing out, and bring things back online again quite readily. So nothing really drifted too far from an aligned experience, a shared experience, as we built business and fostered our relationship as well. And I think that, like, we knew about that, so we could take advantage of that. But not everyone's in that same boat, and the problem is that if things are drifting, they tend to keep drifting, and while they're drifting, the years fly by, and then you end up like either going your own separate ways, or still desiring the relationship, but wondering, well, what the hell do we do about this now? Like, man, and you're right, you've got a job on your hands to reel it back in after that's happened.
Next thing, you find yourself in extensive therapy, reading lots of books, going off to a tantra workshop, all these things. But it was all just about not keeping connected along the way. It does not work to try and sequence it. We get to be special later. We've got to be special now. And that includes even if you've got the bum out of your pants because you've just started the business, right? Because we had some lean cash flow times, and we still found ways to have fun. And even today, one of the things we love to do is play a game of cards, right? What does it cost us? Nothing. It's a bit of time, have a bit of fun. We've already got the cards, no cost whatsoever.
It's all investment.
It's all investment. That's right. And we're not in a compromise. We both get to express and be in things that we absolutely love, whether it's together. So, for example, pickleball or traveling or whatever, or doing our own separate hobbies and interests. That's totally, that's how we both end up thriving so much. So, I think one of the takeaways for me for today would be just, stop using your busyness or your overwhelm or your tiredness as a surrogate excuse for not building your relationship, but recognizing that building the relationship is a two-person game, but it comes from, you got to know who you are and what you love first, and what visions you're here to bring forward, bring to the table, even if you can't do them just yet. But bring them forward, bring the enthusiasm, the energy, the joy that comes with those things, and make sure everything's included. The relationship, if you've got kids, our kids have all grown up, so we don't quite have them on the scene quite so much. The business and the personal pursuits. So we're building the whole thing together.
And I think it's recognizing that it is an inside job with regard to each person having responsibility, to take for themselves. And so, because what can happen a lot of times is that people can feel like, well, I want to talk more, or share more, or be more connected, but my partner isn't on the same page, and therefore we're buggered. But the truth of the matter is that it only takes one person to either not continue to be involved in dysfunctional dynamics and arguments and drama, but just holding their ground on something more of a more aligned nature, and not going down those paths, not fueling it, but also being clear in themselves about what they'd love for the relationship and the business as well. But how does the relationship look and feel when it's the way I'd love it to be? What am I going for here? Because it's very difficult to head out on a journey when you don't know where you're going. How do you get there? Even if when you've got clarity on where you're going, you can be off course most of the time, but you can course correct because you know what your destination is, you know where that is. So clarity of vision for your relationship is super important. I think it's one of the things that people overlook very readily. But it's a part of a person taking responsibility for their part in the relationship, is to get clear about what is it I'd actually love here, and holding that. Just holding that is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can, have check-in points and go, hey, how are we going with that? What are you going for? What are you most excited about as we're building this together? Because it's worth looking at what you're creating right now, because whatever you're doing, whatever life you're building and however you're building it, it's shaping how your relationship is tracking, whether you realize it or not. So we're either going to be conscious about it and create something we love, or we're going to be unconscious about it and hoping that it all works out. And there's a lot of chaos and whim available to you if that's the case. So amazing. Very good. Great. Thanks for joining us. And make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you can catch the next episode.
Beautiful.
All right. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.